Hello, I'm the Dark Master, and welcome back to my Kirby Right Back at You retrospective. In today's video installment, we shall be covering episode 34, A Recipe for Disaster, or as it's known in the Japanese original, Ultimate Iron Chef Shiitake! A clear reference to the many Iron Chef shows that have aired on television. This episode was released in Japan on June 1st, 2002 as the 34th episode, while in North America it was released on February 15th, 2003 as the 33rd episode. This change in release date is likely due to the change in other episodes as opposed to anything wrong with the episode itself. Enough about that though, let us start covering the episode's plot. The episode opens to an outside shot as we see the kids and Kirby, who is carrying a basket of food. The pink puffball is distracted by a fish jumping in the nearby stream. The two siblings look back. Tiff is disappointed and Tuff tells Kirby to hurry up. Kirby reacts to this, and as he is about to catch up, a familiar individual slides into view. This is none other than Chef Shiitake. Now, this is not the first time we've seen this fellow. As you remember back in episode 11, the big taste test, we saw a monster impersonator of him. So, why not? Let us go ahead and cover him now. Chef Shiitake, called in Japan Cook Osaka, is a round, naked mole rat-esque ball creature that was Kawasaki's old mentor, and is noteworthy for several reasons. Firstly, he's one of the few recurring side characters that has served as a guest in multiple episodes. Though, even if you want to only count it as an imposter, then I guess it wouldn't really count, but still. Secondly, in the English dub, he's voiced by the amazingly talented Mike Pollock, most well known for voicing the infamous Dr. Eggman / Ivo Robotnik. Here he does an excellent job with his distinctive flair that really makes him seem like he's snooping around as usual. His Japanese voice is done by the much less famous Junichi Sugawara, and they also did a well job, but honestly, it's a little more subdued, so it's not nearly as memorable compared to Pollock's performance. A third noteworthy thing is that Chef Shiitake is one of the few anime originating characters to have appeared in a Kirby video game. Indeed, Chef Shiitake appeared as a cameo boss in Kirby Mass Attack on the Nintendo DS. The sprite work on him is pretty well done. Overall, it's a good character and it's nice to see him again. Back to the episode's plot. Chef Shiitake asks Kirby directions to Kawasaki's restaurant. Kirby, a little hesitant, points him in the right direction, and when he walks past, Kirby goes to warn Tiff and Tuff of his arrival. It is here that we see the first change between versions. In the Japanese original, Kirby tries to save Cook Osaka's name while pointing at him. The English dub removed Kirby speaking his name and just has him say Poyo Poyo. Honestly, both versions are good, but the English dub does seem to make more sense since Kirby is meant to be a mostly non-speaking baby in the anime. The two siblings are shocked to see the returning chef and reasonably thinking it is Popon in disguise. We get a close up of Chef Shiitake walking, and then we cut to the intro. After the intro, we cut to Chef Kawasaki's as we see another change between versions. As in the Japanese original, there are kanji on the restaurant's flags. The English dub saw 4 kids airbrushing this out. Honestly, not a big deal, though it does highlight 4 kids' excessive censorship of anything vaguely East Asian. Kawasaki bemoans his slow day while reading the morning newspaper. Chef Shiitake enters into his restaurant. Kawasaki, shocked by his arrival and believing, based on the events of episode 11, that this is the monster Popon, starts attacking the poor old man. Thinking that he's obviously Monster Popon, returning for revenge. Tiff and Tuff walk in and join the brawl. Kawasaki tells who he believes is a monster off. However, Shiitake, in genuine fear for his life, screams he's not a monster. Tiff, however, says he's back to try to eat Kirby again. Understandably, Chef Shiitake is confused, and Tiff proceeds to explain the plot synopsis of episode 11 as we see a montage of reused animation indicating a flashback. Sadly, there lacks a blurry edge seen in other flashbacks, which is a darn shame because I always like those sort of visual indicators. Chef Shiitake, to prove he's the real deal, pulls out his chef knife. What we see next is a scene in the Japanese original where he begins swinging the knife with expert precision. 4 kids sadly cut this, likely in the mistaken belief that it promoted knife violence. Kawasaki, convinced and in tears, begs for forgiveness, which the gruff teacher accepts his apology, while the siblings are concerned about why he showed up. Kawasaki asks why he's here, and Chef Shiitake explains he's here to test Kawasaki's cooking and see if it's up to snuff. In order to make his master proud, Kawasaki begins cooking up one of everything on his menu. This includes such East Asian foods as sautéed liver, gyoza, tongotsutsu ramen, sweet and sour pork, Asian meatballs, special fried rice, hot sour soup, and glazed pork belly. It all honestly looks absolutely delicious. However, Shiitake only takes a bite of each and leaves the rest to Kirby, who happily consumes it all. We cut to Kawasaki, tired from the heavy workload. We see a high stack of plates and a stuffed Kirby. Chef Shiitake is, however, not impressed and says the food is lousy, saying Kawasaki should be ashamed and he has no business owning a restaurant. He then proceeds to steal Kawasaki's frying pan and size. Also, a little animation error here is the kanji is briefly visible for a split second when Shiitake is moving Kawasaki's sign. Also, I stated before, but the fact that the food looks delicious really sort of hampers this whole idea that Kawasaki's cooking is a bit odd. Tiff says he can't just shut Kawasaki down, to which Shiitake says Kawasaki shouldn't call himself a chef, that with all the natural flavors in the surrounding area of Capitan, he has no excuse for his bad cooking. Then says he must learn the hard way. He then leaves as the poor Chef Kawasaki sits and cries. Meanwhile, Kirby is just happy for the meal. We then cut to Escargoon, who informs King Dedede in his throne room of the arrival of the real Chef Shiitake. The king is greatly pleased, as Escargoon says it will be great, and the two hug. We cut back to Kawasaki's, where Tiff asks Kawasaki if he is really giving up, And Kawasaki says, yes, as the master is right. Tough says perhaps Shiitake will open up a business in Cappytown. Kawasaki then has a nervous daydream / waking nightmare where we see a tall building has been built right next to Kawasaki's restaurant. The Japanese original has some Japanese kanji symbols which are obviously removed from the English dub. We see this new building has a lot of success. There's a point where Kawasaki is forced to go dumpster diving. He gets caught by Chef Shiitake, whose dialogue in return is changed between versions. In the Japanese original, Chef Shiitake offers Kawasaki a job of cleaning dishes, while in the English dub, Shiitake is far more aggressive, saying that as long as he can't cook, he can't be here. The English version does give off a sort of a morally superior vibe. In either version, Kawasaki bemoans his failure, for which a concerned Kirby says Poyo. We then cut to outside, where we see Chef Shiitake is wandering around the town, annoyed at the lack of hotels. King Dedede and Escargoon drive up to him and roll out the red carpet for the mighty chef. He asks who the pair are, to which Escargoon introduces the king and himself. The king says Chef Shiitake is welcome to stay in his royal castle, though adding that he wishes for some of the chef's gourmet cooking in exchange. To which Shiitake readily agrees and hops into the tank, and the trio ride off into the castle. We then cut to Chief Bookham's police station. In the Japanese original, there is an extended scene of the police chief and his wife having an extended conversation while eating. It was honestly rather meaningless and kind of boring, so the fact that the English dub cut it really wasn't that big of a deal. As such, we go straight to the broadcast. Speaking of, the broadcast opens to Escargoon explaining the arrival of Chef Shiitake, the real one this time. In the English dub, there is a small, humorous exchange where Escargoon says, due to Chef Shiitake's cooking show, Demon will not be airing tonight. This is clearly a reference to the popular anime based on the Nintendo series Pokemon. Also, in the Japanese original, there are these garish early 2000s CGI letters that read, Cook Osaka's all about how to cooking, which is just peak English, but I kind of wish they had left it in. We see various Cappies are watching the broadcast from their homes. Chef Shiitake introduces himself and the local area to gourmet food. He starts to prepare an appetizer, a succulent duck, which honestly seems a bit much for an appetizer, but regardless, Kirby is excited while the wretched Takori is perturbed that what being cooked could be very well his own friend who is a duck. Now, on one hand, it is absolutely horrifying that a sentient creature, and I don't mean like PETA sentient, I mean like actual talking bird sentient, is being cooked alive. But also, Takori, you're a terrible, abysmal creature, and it's a real shame that you're not the one being cooked alive, you wretched bird. Another change between versions is seen here. For you see, around this part of the episode, Chef Shiitake mentions that he uses alcohol in his cooking, and 4Kids being 4Kids removed all references. Even though I would say that it's very weird to cut out alcohol when it's not being explicitly drunk. This is for cooking, and if you know anything about cooking, 95% of the time when you're cooking with alcohol, the alcohol is at such a low amount that there is no significant threat to actually getting drunk. Also, in the Japanese original, we hear a remix of Orange Ocean theme from Kirby's Adventure. Honestly, it's a good theme, and really sounds well done here. Shiitake then begins to flambe as we see Didi Esragoon, the mayor, Blustergas, his wife, Ladylike, and Sir Ibram all serving as judges. Waddle Dees then deliver the finished meals, which the judges declare delicious. Tiff and Tuff also try some of the food. Tuff says it's delicious, but Tiff says this is all the same dishes that Kawasaki serves and wonders why Shiitake is so much better. Your answer is because the animation staff in Japan really don't like drawing food that is meant to taste bad as looking actually bad. But Tuff says perhaps Shiitake has a secret, and the pair promise each other to find out what that secret is. Meanwhile, Kawasaki has had it. We see a crowd of cabbies outside the castle demanding to try some of the amazing food. In the Japanese original, one can hear the intro theme for Gourmet Race from Kirby Superstar. It's honestly a decent remix, though I'm not really going to show it here. The Cappies and Kirby walk in as we see everyone enjoying the food. Chef Shiitake then, on live television, calls out Kawasaki and challenges him to join him. Kawasaki is initially hesitant, but eventually accepts it. We cut to Asragoon and Didi continuing to judge the food. The snail says he must stop or he's going to get fat as a whale. After finishing up, we see Tiff, Tuff, and Kirby watching Shiitake, who wanders off stage to his waiting room. The trio follow him down the hall, noting his suspicious behavior. Before they can enter, Kawasaki shows up and explains he's accepted Shiitake's challenge. Tuff supports this, and Tiff tries to explain to him what's going on, but Shiitake exits his room. It is here we see a slight inconsistency that was created due to 4Kids' silly antics. As in the English dub, he brushes Kawasaki's off, despite having challenged him to come here in the first place. It's kind of weird because he acts like he never did so. As you can probably expect, the Japanese original lacked this inconsistency as it was never changed at all. Chef Shiitake says to leave him alone since he's on break. Tiff and the others then enter Shiitake's resting room. She tells Kawasaki he should stand up for himself, but Kawasaki says his teacher is correct, as he has just no self-esteem whatsoever. The camera pans over to Shiitake's luggage as Tuff sees an odd box labeled Gajira extract. Tiff asks what it is, and Kawasaki, who doesn't know, says it's some kind of spice. Tiff says it might be the secret recipe that is making Shiitake's food so good since it's in his bag. They decide to test it by putting it in a cup of noodles. In the Japanese original, the cup has text that reads, Cup L. The English dub removed this text for unknown reasons. The group smell and taste the noodles, declaring them delicious. Kirby especially loves the food. Before anything further can be said, Kawasaki is called by his master Shiitake to the cooking studio. We cut to Chef Shiitake preparing some type of pasta al dente. Kawasaki, dejected, arrives, and Shiitake says they're going to cook a simple meat and potato stew, referred to as a nikujaga in the Japanese original, since his student is slow and stupid. Embarrassing and further humiliating the poor Kawasaki, live on television to what I can only assume are thousands of people. This further greatly annoys Tiff and Tuff, who says they wish they'd stop being so mean to the poor guy. While Shiitake is distracted, explaining to the viewers how a stew is made, Kawasaki sneaks into his dish some of the Gajira extract. The Waddle Dees then deliver the finished stew to the less than excited judges. Escargoon hopes there is a doctor in the house, while Cerebrum wishes there was a way out of it. Ladylike even suggests faking an illness to get out of it. However, then strange purple vapors emit from the food as the mayor bluster gas says it actually smells relatively decent, which is surprising to him. Didi orders Escargoon to try the food first. Though obstinate, he does try it and says it's delicious, as the other judges declare it amazing. Kawasaki, however, cannot lie, and when they ask for a secret, he shows off the Gajira extract to everyone's confusion. We then see Tiff holding up a sign that shows the chemical structure of Gajira extract and explains what it is. This explanation is dramatically changed between versions. In the Japanese original, Gajira extract is created from magic psilocybin mushrooms that cause people to hallucinate who ingest it. Yeah, you heard that right. The food is literally drugged here. Of course, this is far from the only Nintendo property with references to hallucinogenic mushrooms. I mean, what do you think Mario eats to get bigger? Now, 4Kids replaced this explicit usage with the mention of artificial chemicals. Sort of like how there are certain food dyes that cause kids to turn into literal demons of excess energy. As a libertarian, can I just say how dumb it is to remove this? I mean, it's not depicted in a positive light. I mean, 4Kids also removed all references to alcohol, even when used in cooking. Apparently, they're unaware of the fact that cooking regularly uses it. And frankly, I don't see the need to shield kids from these concepts, especially since they're not depicted in the most positive light anyway. I mean, I understand that magic mushrooms were illegal at the time thanks to Bill Clinton's legislation, but still, a little funny thing I noticed was in Tiff's chemical diagram, it has the component of Hu, which is the symbol for uranium. And yeah, I don't think I need to say this, but there's no uranium in psilocybin. Back to the plot. The judges are shocked at the fraud, saying that no good chef would use chemicals, apparently unaware of the fact that salt and water are literally chemicals, but whatever. Kawasaki then points the finger to Chef Shiitake, who was the one who possessed the Gajirin extract. Tiff, holding the Shiitake's bag, explains where they found the Gijira extract. The mayor is shocked while his wife says the chef should be ashamed of himself. Chef Shiitake, however, begins laughing hysterically and says all chefs use chemicals, to the shock of Tiff, even bragging that chemicals can make rotten hamburgers taste good. And that's not entirely true, but I get the point. And Kawasaki's food is so bad that it was the only thing that could possibly make it taste good. Having enough of the abuse, Kawasaki throws the Gajira extract at his master. It hits Shiitake in the head, bounces off the wall, and lands in Kirby's hungry mouth. Tiff warns him not to eat it, as everyone looks horrified at Kirby. The pink puffball starts tripping out, grabs a knife and fork, and starts hallucinating the people as food. He sees Dedede as cooked turkey, Escargoon as well, cooked escargot, the mayor and his wife as two hot dogs, Sir Ibram as chocolate mousse, and Ladylike as a sundae. He turns around and stares at Tiff, who has a rice ball for a head, and Tuff, who is flan, and all the other cappies have been turned into all sorts of delicious food that I just could not go into any other detail without beginning to eat someone. Hungry, Kirby begins running after Didi and Escargoon. Mayor Blustergas and Cerebrum try to stop Kirby, who then starts chasing after them as well, trying to consume the entire group. Didi and Escargoon then go down a separate hallway, fleeing for their lives while they're still pursued by Kirby. After some Scooby-Doo-esque escapades, Dee runs into a telephone box he seemingly has for no reason here. It is here we see the last visual alteration between versions. In the Japanese original, it has the plain English text telephone. The English dub removed this despite it being perfectly clean English. It's just baffling to see, honestly. Regardless, Dee enters this express monster delivery phone booth, leaving Escargoon in his cooked form to shiver in fear. DDD calls up the enemy sales guy and requests an emergency monster delivery. The enemy sales guy says there will be an extra charge for the express delivery. So much like Amazon, it's not even funny anymore. Kirby continues to chase after Escargoon and DDD, who picked a bad time to leave the telephone booth. We then see, via the power of reused animation, the delivery of the monster of the week occurs. Let us cover him now. This is Cobgoblin, which is perhaps one of the corniest monster names I've ever heard. It, true to its name, is a giant corn cob with a pair of feet, hands, and pitch black sunken-in eyes. Honestly, the simple design, while a little corny, really works for a Kirby villain, and I could easily see it working as a mini-boss that could give Kirby the leaf ability. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments down below. Though it's silent in the English dub, Cobgoblin actually has a voice in the Japanese original by Takashi Nagasako, who is known for voicing Ganondorf from Legend of Zelda and Donkey Kong. He did a fine enough job, though nothing really was lost with its removal. The sales guy then tells Cobgoblin to go get Kirby, and the giant corn cob storms off in Kirby's general direction. We cut to see Kirby still chasing after DDD and Escargoon when Cobgoblin shows up. Kirby, still high as heck, thinks the monster is corn and kindly walks up to it. The monster, who is unsurprisingly angry at the gall of this Star Warrior to try and eat it, begins slapping the bejesus out of him. Kirby, despite this, is still high, and so Cobgoblin uses his hair to grab Kirby and squeeze him tight until his mouth opens. He then releases his seed into Kirby's mouth, which, after being eaten, begin popping, sending the poor baby flying around the room in an excruciating pain. The king and Escargoon laugh at his suffering, while Cobgoblin closes in on the downed Kirby. Tough grabs Kawasaki's frying pan and throws it to Kirby, who, upon losing his high, eats it to become... Cook Kirby. I've covered this ability in depth before twice, so I recommend checking out either my reviews of episode 11, The Big Taste Test, or episode 29, A Spice Odyssey, if you want to learn more about Cook Kirby. But I will say that they made an excellent transition to anime that was done overall very well. Kirby then proceeds to attack Cobgoblin, knocking off his kernels, effectively skinning the monster alive before expanding his frying pan and cooking the kernels over an open flame. After eating some popcorn, the popcorn explodes into an avalanche that covers the entire crowd as Tiff sarcastically asks if they want to see a movie. Meanwhile, Dedede complains about Nightmare Enterprise essentially sending him some weak monster that turns into popcorn. He then decides to try some of the popcorn, yet much to his displeasure, it begins popping in his body, causing him to fly off into the air, no doubt causing extreme internal pain and suffering. We then cut to the edge of town during the sunset, where we see Kirby, Kawasaki, Tiff, and Tuff saying goodbye to Chef Shiitake. He says he hopes Kawasaki will improve by the time he visits again. Kawasaki, curious, asks if his master really had been using the Gojira extract the entire time, to which Shiitake explains no, rather that he bought it as a gift for Kawasaki to use. In what is the final change between versions, Chef Shiitake explains his lesson to his student. In the Japanese original, he says, taste is something that can change and improve by doing tiny things. While in the English dub, he says he wanted to teach Kawasaki to use everything in their toolkit. And that's what a chef does, to make the best food. Honestly, both lessons fit the theme of the episode, though considering Gejira extract is so widely condemned by the wider culinary world in Kirby that you probably should avoid using it if you want your reputation to be fine. Kawasaki says he's sorry that his master's reputation is ruined, but Shiitake says as long as his student learned, it's all okay to him. And his final word is to assure Kawasaki that no matter what, he has at least one who likes his cooking, that being Kirby. And so the episode closes on Kirby jumping into the air, waving goodbye to Chef Shiitake and vomiting out some popcorn. Ew. Now let's cover the positives, negatives, and my final thoughts on the episode. Firstly, Chef Shiitake was handled really good. One, it's always nice to see a follow up on a previous episode, and the initial hostility he experienced makes honestly a lot of sense. Also, his relationship with Kawasaki was nuanced and well done. Sure, on the surface, he seems to be sort of a temperamental, stereotypical, rude slash abusive slash toxic teacher, but it's revealed that he actually deeply cares for his student, and the fact that he was willing to completely ruin his reputation just to get Kawasaki some illicit drugs that would make his cooking better means that he must have a deep care for all his students. Oh yeah, and the whole sequence of Kirby tripping out and attempting to devour everyone is so hilarious and quite shocking on like a conceptual level. I mean, seriously. Imagine if you smoked weed and you started eating people. That'd be horrifying. Cobb Goblin is also just hilariously well named and honestly well designed, and I genuinely hope he makes a appearance in the games. I mean, he's on the same level of design as some of the current bosses, such as Bonkers. Cook Kirby was also extremely well implemented and utilized in this episode. In terms of negatives, I mentioned it before, but there is the problem of how the animation's desire to depict food just kind of greatly waters down the message. I mean, Kawasaki's food and Chef Shiitake's food, on a purely visual level, literally look identical. I don't know why they do that. It really hampers what they're going for. But the greatest problem with the episode is just the frankly bizarre censorship. From airbrushing out harmless kanji to outright perfectly written English text. Like, what a wasted effort. Why would you even do that? And plus, it causes an animation error. Also, the just frankly bullheaded censorship of all illicit drugs or alcohol references. It's pretty weird. It's this sort of weird belief that children must be shielded from these substances. Even the existence of it would cause them to become hooked, and honestly, it just harms them more than it helps them. I mean, if people know the dangers of drugs, which, yes, there are dangers to them, then they would be better equipped to deal with it. I mean, I'm a libertarian. I think all these drugs should be legal for anyone to use, but I still think people should be informed about it. I mean, even the episode depicts the magic mushroom Gajira extract as a bad, or at the very least, a negative thing to do that is widely shunned. Also, alcohol is not just for drinking, it is regularly used in cooking in the real world, and it's dishonest to deny this, especially if a kid wants to grow up to be a chef. Overall, however, despite these flaws, this is still a good episode, and I highly recommend giving it a rewatch. It's definitely a upper level episode. Now, normally I would end the episode here, but I have one last thing to say about this episode. You see, this was the last time we see King Dedede actively ride his tank. I mean, there is a cameo in the later episode, but it's not really that significant. They did this likely to avoid military references. It was replaced by a limousine in the next episode, which is also a two-part racing episode, which will be a joy to cover. Join me next time for that on the Kirby Right Back at Ya Retrospective, and have a good day.